If you are seriously goal oriented, but you don't have a plan of action, it's likely that you'll become like most people who are focused on all of the wrong things. They're stuck on the same health and the same job and the same relationships year after year. This video is going to teach you the first essential step to achieving your goals that will keep you unstuck and making progress every day. My name's Monica. I analyze, work on, read about, and think about self improvement all day, every day. And I do that so that I can help you improve too. Now, imagine with me that you're at point A and you're trying to get to point B. Pretty simple. You just have to follow along a straight line and you'll arrive at your destination. But what if you think you're at point A, but instead you're really at point C? You think you're at point A and then you follow the same directions to point B. You're going to end up at a completely different destination. In fact, you'll probably end up at point D. Now, knowing where your point is exactly what this video is about. It's about asking yourself the right questions on a daily basis so you can know where you need to go. Now, there are 5 characteristics of these questions, but first we need to cover one very common misconception that derails most people's success. You don't really know where you are. And let me prove that to you. In the 1970s, Michael Gazzaniga performed a study on patients with severed brain hemispheres. In his study, he analyzed their actions and then later asked them why they acted in that way. Come to find out, they didn't have access to their reasoning hemisphere. This study concluded that the brain actually invents stories for why you act the way you act after you act. Unless you really ask yourself intentional questions, you're really not going to know where you are. You're just going to be stuck on your imagination and why you think you are where you are. So now that we've dispelled that misconception, let's get into the 5 characteristics. Your questions need to address each core area of your life. Psychology typically agrees that there are 6 to 8 core areas of your life. The mainstream are physical health, mental and emotional, relationships, spirit, finances, meaningful work, and environment. Each element is crucial to the advancement of others. They rely on each other. And we don't have to look far for evidence of this. We can actually look at the movie The Incredibles. Mr. Incredible, at the beginning of the movie, starts off high on life. He's very famous, he enjoys what he does, and he is getting married to another superwoman. Superhero work is deemed illegal, and so his fulfillment plummets. His family life tanks, and he gets really fat. It's very obvious that once his fulfillment and his work dropped, everything else dropped as well. Now, speaking personally, it's really easy to ignore the areas of life that you don't like or you struggle with, but they're really important. And in fact, they might actually be the gateway to getting to the next level in another area of life. Also, another observation or a question about Mr. Incredible is, do you think he gained weight overnight? Probably not. You can't just gain 50 pounds overnight. That will lead us to our next characteristic, which is that your questions need to be asked daily. Your life is a summary of the choices that you've made time and time again over years. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, describes this perfectly. He uses the example of a plane that's traveling from Los Angeles to New York. If the pilot changed the plane's heading by just 2.5 degrees, instead of landing in New York, they'd actually land in Washington, D.C. So asking questions is like making sure that your heading doesn't shift by 2.5 degrees. It prevents you from waking up years later in your life and realizing that you're actually not heading where you actually meant to head. Asking questions daily is a good start, but it doesn't quite address everything. That leads us to characteristic number 3. Your questions need to be applicable to your everyday life. Have you ever taken a personality test and have been surprised by the results? You think, oh my goodness, I didn't know that about myself. Despite the amazing insight, has that ever produced any change in your life? My guess is not, and here's why. A personality test is designed to give you hypothetical situations in which you guess how you would act in them. Your answers become a profile for your personality type. But the problem with this is that life is more nuanced than this. Any hypothetical situation that is given to you is not going to accurately reflect the situation you're in real life. And that's why questions that are applicable to daily life are so important. To help you, I've linked a few questions that I use for myself that address my daily life. Now, if you're trying to do something daily, then you need to make it as undifficult, uncomplicated as possible. If you have one uncomplicated question per life category, Each question is simple enough to require a one sentence response, and each sentence requires 30 seconds to think of and 15 seconds to write. This means the entire exercise should take 10 minutes. If journaling for 30 plus minutes is something that you like to do, then great. But for the rest of us, let's focus on making the most of our time. Now, this last characteristic is very important, and I myself have fallen into the trap of not following this. The answers to your questions need to be written down. Now, it's tempting to not think that you need to answer all your questions by writing them down because, for the most part, they're the same day by day. Humans are very habitual creatures, and you'll end up thinking, doing, and acting in the same manners day after day. But here's the really important part. Your answers should not be the same every day. Because if you're an overachiever and you're goal oriented and you're really willing to change your actions and your habits, there should be tiny changes. The very nature of writing down your answers to these questions will keep you accountable to making sure that you make those small changes. So, to recap, it is essential for you to ask questions to know where you're at. It is also very important to acknowledge that you might actually not know where you're at. The five characteristics of the questions that you need to ask yourself are that they're all encompassing, meaning they address each core area of your life. They're applicable, they're uncomplicated, they're daily, and they're written out. Now, if you've reached a point where you've asked and answered yourself these questions 7 days in a row and you need help with creating an action plan to get yourself unstuck, watch this video here.